Welcome to Happy Wolf Art and episode 8 of Artistic Choices. Before we get started, I would like to bring everyone's attention to my Instagram page, Happy Wolf Art 1. And if you saw the most recent shorts, they were of this Beetle Bailey comic, which I just finished and colored. So if you're interested in seeing the final version of that, please do stop by. There's also a lot of other fun art projects. This is an image referring to a comic that I also just finished and a short story called Defy a Hessian. Here's the cover for that. A lot of fun art on the inside of that also. It's a comic, sort of a journal zine style, ashcan style if you're familiar with that. And this is the main character here, Eddie. And here's some internals, very quickly done also, and just a really just a simple style, but a lot of fun. And yeah, head on over and check out my Instagram if you like, and have all kinds of projects in the works, and this is where I update everything. So all right, let's head on over to Artistic Choices, and I'm going to put this on slideshow mode. And in looking and preparing for the 2-page comic strip that I did, I looked at a lot of Beetle Bailey art, and I was looking at style choices, artistic choices, lines, and so forth, and I noticed a couple really interesting things here. And if you can see my cursor, if you'll follow the cursor there, I noticed when Mort does feet, that oftentimes, and he's drawing really quickly, the toes aren't necessarily in the proper places. Now, for this overall scene, it's unimportant, right? The action of him pulling and waking Beetle Bailey, this is an early version of Beetle Bailey, up, is the most important. But if you notice, the big toe is on the outside of the toe, should be on the inside. And so here's an example of that. And then we have same thing here, toes on the inside, which is proper, and toes on the far side of the foot, so it should be over here. At times he does it correctly, so oftentimes when you see the feet in sort of a side-by-side position like this, you'll see both of the big toes touching, and you'll see that here in this sleep scene. Here they're sort of together, so the big toes are touching. Here for Sarge, they're also touching. So just really quick choices. A lot of times these scenes do not require anatomical correctness, and oftentimes that's a fun element of cartooning. Here's another one of Baby Beetle. If you notice, his toes, his big toes, are pretty lined up for the most part. So a little bit of back and forth, sort of interesting thing I noted in studying his line work. Oftentimes with cartoon heads, right, some of the physics of our body can be broken. His neck would obviously be broken. His body's facing forward, but he's looking at this action behind him, so his head's turned all the way around, and that's pretty typical of some cartoons. Here's another version of that. This guy's jumping out of the window. His head's looking back towards some danger, a fire or something, and the anatomical correctness of this isn't so important. Okay, the gist of the scene is there, and that's what's important, and that's what they're going for. And these artists are drawing relatively quickly for the most part also. Interesting with Sarge, if you notice his belt line, a lot of the characters have this sort of cupcake bulge, but the belt line, there is no strap line here in this image, and this alternates also, just like with the toes. Sometimes there is a line and other times not. And we'll also talk about hands in this sort of area also, just briefly coming up here. So here's another one of Sarge. Again, you do not see the belt line here, but other places he does have a belt line there. So I'm not quite sure if he's making a distinct choice for this particular situation. I couldn't find a pattern to either choices, but either way, it's present. Now with the hand as it goes into the sleeve, sometimes there is a sleeve here. You see this sort of square, and other times that sleeve is absent or suggested by this open space. So that's also another thing, is sometimes our eyes will fill these blank spots in, and this empty space acts just like an enclosed space to our eye. Okay, so that's another little interesting thing that he does. If you look at the Colonel's wrist here, we have a closed, if I can zoom in, it's closed here, but it's open on this side. Okay. Also here, it's completely open, right? And so you can just draw this straight line with the boom, 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 and then you're done with the hands. So I think a lot of this is suggestion, or I will fill that in, and also just to work quickly. Here's another good example here of this open space, a suggestion again for this cuff. All right, here we have an example of a closed cuff and then one open. So again, this is sort of in the background, it's unimportant. He's enclosing this because it's in the foreground. And then here we have a lot of people marching. Again, the details of it being enclosed isn't important here. There's a lot of action going on, and so it's left suggested for our eye to fill in. Oftentimes he will leave out body parts. So if you look at this arm, obviously it's detached from the body. There's motion here, and really the part where it connects here to his body is sort of unimportant to the scene, and it's left out perhaps for brevity's sake. But nonetheless, I've found that in a number of other panels here. So this angle of somebody walking away from the camera, the leg will often be left off here on the side, right? Obviously it's suggested by this foot, but he's okay with leaving it off. Perhaps there's a difficulty in drawing it here, and maybe he tried and at some point just decided to leave it off. So I'm not quite sure. Here's another example of it. This leg is all drawn in detail. This is just suggested. Obviously less of the leg would be seen here because of the perspective. All right, and then simplicity of line, right, is really a part of Mort's work. If you look at this individual, just a lot of C's, right? C, here's a C, the head upside down, C, right? Couple straight lines on the head. And then if you notice for the tie, even when he draws live, he draws these collars very quickly, and he always suggests this back collar or leaves it off. And so if you notice on this character, he does not have the collar because of the perspective it's in, but just a simplicity of line here. Sometimes with cartoons, too many details will just make the image too busy. And also simplicity of line here. We have this figure of Beetle Bailey in the foreground. He has details on his clothing, and as these images of paratroopers go away, less details are shown, showing that they're further away from the viewer and those details aren't seen. And then the last slide, if you ever wanted to see Beetle Bailey's eyes, here are Beetle Bailey's eyes. This is the only strip, the only panel that his eyes are shown in, at least according to Mort Walker. And this is, according to this hat, one of the early versions of Beetle Bailey, I think from the 50s. Maybe the 60s, but I'm pretty sure it's the 50s, before Beetle Bailey was a private. So anyways, that's some things that I learned about Beetle Bailey and Mort Walker's art style. And if you're interested in checking out the comic strip, head over to my Instagram, Happy Wolf Art 1, and I'll bring that up one more time just for a visual so people can see. There it is, Happy Wolf Art 1, and drop me a line if you're interested. All right, thank you.